St. Augustine once said, "The world is a book, and those who do not travel read only one page." Many people dream of traveling and seeing the world, but never end up buying that plane ticket. Life tends to get too busy for most. Today I'd like to share with you how I got the travel bug, and why you should get it too. For most of my life, I dreamed of seeing the world, and I can always remember thinking about backpacking Europe for 3 to 6 months after I finished high school. How cool would that be? But I graduated high school, and then college, and never had the money. I found this would be the case even after getting a job out of college. I soon found that I never had enough money to save or to get ahead on my student loans. There was always never enough vacation time to really go anywhere other than have an extra day or two during a holiday. I found myself envious of how Europeans got about a month of paid vacation, and most Americans were lucky to see any in their jobs. What I found myself doing was diving into the daily grind of corporate America. I was happy at first because I believed that if I worked hard, I'd get promoted, make more money, and get more vacation to hopefully have that opportunity to go to another country. But I found myself only frustrated that my hard work was not paying off. It wasn't until one night I ran into an old school friend, who also burned out on the corporate world, introduced me to teaching English in South Korea. It sounded like the challenge I needed, so I started the process of selling off everything in my life and going through the hurdles of paperwork I needed to live in another country. The most exciting part about doing the paperwork was getting my passport for the first time. I felt like I had just punched my ticket to the world. I had read that only 30% of Americans actually had a passport, and of that 30%, only 15% used them. I made a promise to myself that I would fill mine full before I needed to renew it. So the day came when I would leave American soil for the first time. It took me to the age of 28 to finally find my way abroad, and it was far from being Europe. That day was the last day of my traditional American thinking. What I would experience from this moment on would leave me profoundly different than the person I was. As soon as I arrived in Korea, I was thrown on a bus, picked up by my school director, introduced to the staff, and started teaching that next Monday. I never taught before, and had no idea what I was doing, but I learned quickly and fell in love with it. I would find myself getting my master's in education, which would help me begin teaching at a university, and before I knew it, it would be 7 years later. But teaching is not what has kept me living abroad. It's the opportunity of travel that teaching has given me. Traveling has become the center of my life, and whatever I do, it must become the way I sustain this passion. The experience that made me realize the importance of travel was a trip to Hiroshima, Japan. As I sat on a bench looking at the skeleton of the only building that survived the atomic bomb, I closed my eyes and pictured the bomb exploding right above me 60 years earlier and everything vaporizing where I sat. Being a witness of other places around the world where pain and suffering was created from human atrocities is one important life experience to learn from. But there are also the opportunities to discover ancient ruins and civilizations that may have been swallowed up by the jungles in many places all around the world. What might it have been like to view these places in their original glory? There's visiting and exploring beautiful towns off the beaten track in Europe, or another place in the world that tourists may not have as a top destination. With fewer crowds, you can enjoy the atmosphere of some amazing places, and often you will find the locals to be more friendly and welcoming to your presence. For many people, the opportunity is to try new and sometimes very strange foods that you may never find in your home country could be a trip in itself. Foods from other countries in the world can be very scary to try, but with a little courage and somebody there to take a picture of your conquest, everything is worth trying once. When you travel to different countries, there are sometimes the opportunities to interact with local people and tribes, or learn about the traditions of the people who live or once lived on the lands you are visiting. Learning about cultures firsthand is more educational than any book, and can give you a different perspective on how other people live. Whether you travel solo or with people, you will always meet new travelers on your journey. The great thing about meeting new people is that most probably don't speak English as their first language. There's nothing more exciting than meeting people from around the world. Sometimes your new friends may be your host or tour guide if you visit them in their home country. My biggest piece of advice is to avoid these all-incentive hotel resort packages at all costs. These places rarely offer anything cultural and educational. If you are going to take a vacation, go somewhere where you can make memories that consist of more than just sitting by a pool, drinking cocktails. Experience the actual world, what the actual world has to offer. Stay at a hostel or guest house. Here you can actually meet other travelers from around the world and stay in a clean and affordable place. All you really need to do is have a place to sleep, because you should be out experiencing a new culture and trying new foods, perhaps even hanging out with some of your new friends. If staying on a beach and getting a tan is just your sort of thing, then go somewhere where you can go find your own island paradise. There are so many exotic destinations that are very cheap, allow you to island hop, and have great diving locations. The bonus is that many of these places aren't crowded with hundreds of tourists. And if you are concerned with bringing kids, bring them along. Kids can travel too, and there are tons of parents that backpack the globe with their kids. What better education can you give them than the gift of travel? They will grow up having a much wiser perspective of the world and be more open to other people's differences. My advice is that it's never too late to start seeing and experiencing the world through travel. It just starts with creating a plan and making the dreams come true. Wherever you decide, just go somewhere. As Hans Christian Andersen once said, to travel is to live. Thank you.